So I wanted to make a comment and then ask a question. As a general comment, in the presentation, you talked a fair bit, in the paper you talk about frameworks. But my impression reading it is that it really isn't about frameworks, because what you're really doing is you're asking them about some very specific governance practices and whether they've implemented them or not. If I look at, I think, Table 9, specific structures and processes that they have in place. And then you ask about whether they have successful outcomes. Do they think they have strategic alignment or not? That's really what you're measuring. Because when I first read it, when you were doing your presentation, I thought, well, boy, this would be exciting to see how many people, smaller firms implement COVID versus large firms. But if I understand it right, looking at the paper, I don't see that. You don't actually survey what framework they use in the pursuit of these particular strategic objectives. So, just a suggestion, from an argumentation point of view, I don't know how justified you are. I understand you use the frameworks for your own organization within the paper of these practices, right? But there's no evidence in the study that I can see about which particular framework they were using. It's just, do you use this particular practice, that one? So that's a different kind of a study. You're not really looking at the frameworks per se. And following on that, so my question is, I found that your finding is that the smaller firms have a perception that they have more cost savings, better clarity of accountability, and more efficient allocations of resources than the large firms. And yet they're the small firms that presumably, certainly they aren't using these frameworks more, if anything less, right? And yet they're happier with their outcomes, at least, in that dimension. And if you had any thoughts on that. So to me, that was an interesting finding, that smaller firms are happier with what they're getting, and yet they might be using, although doesn't seem to have any evidence of that one or the other, but they're probably using these frameworks less.
Thank you for both those comments, Kevin. Yes, in terms of the interesting comparison, all we can look at is what did they actually adopt when we actually asked them, did they have an awareness of a framework, had they actually implemented the framework. I agree with you to have actually gone further to actually probe further into particularly the MEs and the responses coming out of that. I can only do that if I can go back and do interviews now. So thank you.
Any other questions?
So I have about 4 questions, but I'll frame them, I'll probably mention them one after the other. The first one I wanted to say is that I know you did a study of how the size of the organization, but what I want to find out is, does the organization size really matter? Or is it really the size of the dedicated team that is tasked with implementing the work effort? So whether it's an IT governance team or IT risk management team or IT department. I mean, you may have, typically in my experience, from external and internal audit, and currently with TMX Group, sometimes the IT audit or the IT governance team is less than 5, but the organization might be huge. So is it really the size of the organization, medium, large, or small, or is it really the size of the team tasked with implementing the framework? Second one is that, were there any challenges in adopting the different frameworks? In other words, was it a one and done, and we put it on the shelf and that was a good exercise? Or was there a sense of a life cycle, that there's the same plan, do, check, act, and you keep doing it? It's easy or difficult to implement something like COVID. It's hard to really continuously monitor risk and continuously go back to all the participants and on a quarterly basis attest to see the risk or the thing that the goal that they were trying to achieve is continually being practiced. The other one, did these companies have a sense through the questionnaire that risk was the driver for them going to pursue CGIT, or was it just something that they heard in the industry that they wanted to do? And the last question is, did they indicate that these frameworks or what they're trying to implement actually resulted in behavioral changes with IT management and IT staff? Were they influenced to do the right thing for the right reason?
Thank you. In answer to the first one, does the organisation size matter? We weren't quite sure how to approach it. We just tried to get a size of the organisation because that really drives how much value, how much of the how much of the total budget goes into expenditure on IT. We don't actually have the data in terms of how many people did they have in their particular IT department in each organisation. I agree that could have added another insight to it. We've purely only got organisational size to understand more about budgeting, to understand more about the resources that are actually physically available for this. The challenges in adopting the framework, I think that would be very interesting to actually follow through in a subsequent study to really look at more in a case study, longitudinal type of one, to understand more about once they've implemented, how does this actually go through in the organisation. I'm not quite sure that we could capture that through, and we didn't capture it through our survey, but I'm not quite sure capturing that just using a snapshot would give the richness to the type of question that you're actually answering there. But that'd be a great follow-up study for us to actually conduct on that one. In terms of the risk factors, it was interesting starting to really see how much risk management really came out through the study. In some respects, I guess I wasn't surprised with that one, but I guess there's more that we can do in terms of probing into that risk framework. And your last question around the behaviours, again, I think doing something like a more longitudinal qualitative type of study will get the richness that we actually need to answer that type of question, rather than a survey which is really just sort of giving us a snapshot at this particular point in time, what is actually the practices, what's the understanding. So out of your questions, I've got a couple of follow-up studies.